Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Heart and Soul Broadcasting Services. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today I'm in conversation with fashion designer, trainer, and entrepreneur Joyce Chimanye. If you enjoy this conversation, remember to subscribe, to like, and share. Let's get down to some work. Joyce Chimanye, what a delight that you finally made it. Last time we had an appointment, you got a big flu, but I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome.
Thank you, Trevor. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Joyce, you've done so many things, and as I was looking through the stuff that you've done, beautiful stuff, very creative. You brought us some of your work there. I say to myself, why does Joyce do what she does? So I'm going to ask you, why do you do what you do?
I'm an artist. I like to create. I like to imagine something and then make sure I materialize it. And I've had this love ever since I was in primary school. My mom was telling me. Yeah.
Your mom was telling you, does your mom give you an indication where this love came from so early?
She just said I'd like to, like, if I had dolls, I would like to actually make up the clothes for the dolls, or even make up the doll. Because back then, when we used to stay in Mutare and the parents were struggling to send us to school, the money was low. You had to be creative to make up your own things to play with. We didn't have money to actually go shopping for things, so you'd actually use what was available to actually make up things to entertain yourself with whilst you're at home. Yeah.
And the passion carried on.
And the passion carried on. And then I remember when I was in in high school, and my mom and dad would buy us clothes. Let's say Edgar's or Truett's, but we would not go at the beginning of the range when the stuff came into the shop. We'd go at the end of the range when the stuff was on sale, because of the financial commitments they had. So then I said to my mom, please don't buy me any more clothes. Can I make my own things? Then she bought me a sewing machine. So I would actually, she would give me the money, then I would actually go and buy fabric. And then I would actually make up something for myself as opposed to buying it from the retail space. And then also when I was at school and we had fellow students competing in, let's say, a lip singing competition back in the 90s, that was a big thing when people used to lip sing. And also proms at the end of the year. So I used to take orders from my schoolmates, and then I used to make the things for them over the school holidays because I was a boarder. For my A levels, I was meant to have done biology, geography, and English. And then at the beginning of my lower six, I said to my dad, I don't want to do biology. Can I drop biology and do art? I'd done art for Form 1 and Form 2. But I stopped it at Form 3 and Form 4. Then he said, okay, fine. Then I dropped the biology, and then I did my O-level art in my lower sixth year. And I did my A-level art in my upper sixth year because I knew I wanted to do something that was art-related, and it was fashion. And when I was in upper sixth, I applied to a couple of factories to go in for an internship so that I could actually study the industry before actually going through and studying. And a factory in Harare actually took me on. It was called Cocotage, owned by a guy called Victor Cohen, son to, a guy called Glenn Cohen, son to Victor Cohen. And I knew nothing, but they took me on. Because normally they would take on interns from the Bulawayo Polytech. They worked closely with them. But they agreed to take me on. And then I was in the factory and I, experiencing it, I knew this is what I wanted to do. And but my parents were not happy that I'd decided to do this.
I was going to ask you that.
No, they were not happy at all.
What did they want you to do?
I suppose after I went into the factory, I realized why. Because in terms of your top management, your creative staff, they weren't black ones, huh? They're all white. So I suppose Black people experience clothing manufacturing from a tailor's perspective. So my dad thought I wanted to be a tailor, and my mom's uncle was a tailor, and he had a table outside, like Kumagrosa in Bulawayo.
Yeah.
Though he was from Manicaland, he went and settled in Bulawayo. And so they said, no, you can't do that. So they didn't even give me their blessings when I actually left to go to the factory. But it's something that I really wanted to do, so I just went ahead and did it anyway.
Stubborn.
So
interesting that your schoolmates are singing, going through these proms and lip syncing. You're not joining them there.
To sing.
You're deciding to rather make clothes for them. Fascinating, isn't it?
Well, I couldn't sing. I couldn't sing. I only...
At least you made the decision or discovery early on that you can't sing, isn't it?
Yeah. And also, I just liked the fact that someone would sit there and then describe to me an outfit that I wanted to look like this and look like that. Then I would actually draw it. And then they'll be so happy when I come back with the outfit and it's looking as they had visualized it.
Yeah.
So that was very encouraging for me.
So the people watching at home, there are kids wanting to go the route that you have chosen. And I think parents tend to push back on things that they're not familiar with. Mothers and fathers tend to say, no, don't go there, like your parents did. What advice would you give to parents who are right now dealing with a child who's either finished O levels or A levels and says, I want to go and to be a designer, or to be like Moffat Tagadiwa was here? What advice would you give those kind of parents?
I would advise parents to also just look into the areas they children want to go into, study, do your research. When you look at, for example, fashion before COVID, the contribution of fashion into global GDP was about $3 trillion. And I mean, everyone is wearing clothes. People are making clothes. So it's an industry that is very viable. But I suppose the training, when I've seen, I suppose why a lot of, especially Zimbabwean parents, I'll speak from a Zimbabwean point of view, do not want their children to go into it, is because I suppose as a nation, we've affected economically over the years, and we've seen a lot of factories closing down. So when I first joined the industry, 1991, we were exporting into the US, was exporting into Europe. We're exporting into South Africa as Zimbabwe. We had so many factories between Harare, Kadoma, Bulawayo. There were so many factories. We had buyers coming in from Europe, from the US, to actually order our cotton and to have the stuff manufactured here. So there was
those good old days, don't we?
And I'm always reminding young people that this is where we used to be, and we need to,
Can we ever go back there, particularly with the Chinese influence, the coming down here and loading chips, offloading cheap stuff? Can we be competitive at all in this sector?
I suppose this is where our government really needs to seriously look into that, to look at what fashion is contributing, the figures is contributing into the global GDP. Who are the brands that are manufacturing? Where is the manufacturing being done? And then look at how they can protect our industry in terms of secondhand clothing. I've just done a training with Zimtrade, in partnership with an expert from Germany, and she was once into garment manufacturing, and she's now into training. And you find that she was sharing the fact that she was in Rwanda a few months ago, and Rwanda has banned the importation and the sale of secondhand clothing in their country. And I think it's really up to governments to look into what areas the people can benefit in terms of job creation and make a deliberate effort to actually ban. I know they've banned it. There's an SI that was put out some years ago, but there's no policing because it's happening. And you find that, for example, in certain countries, there are certain things that duties on those things are heavy in order to protect the local industry. When you look at the case with for example, like Bangladesh, the Bangladeshi government came up with the policy, I think it was in the 70s, and they decided to actually slowly reduce on imports and start producing. And at some point, Bangladesh was the second exporter, and they were not even undergoing into the US. They were exporting so much into the US because of a policy that the government had put in place to actually protect the industry. So I think a conversation needs to be held between government, the private sector, and even young people to say what is our future in terms of garment manufacturing in Zimbabwe, and how we're going to secure jobs for young people in this industry. And then for people to actually, execute that plan.
So protecting the market could be one way where government intervention could help. You say there's a law, but like all laws that we have in this country, most of them don't get policed. What other thing would you say the government ought to look at? What other issues would you say the private sector ought to look at to give impetus to producing our own garments? We've got the cotton, and what else can we do?
So I think on the cotton thing, if you look historically, we've had so many textile companies go into judicial management over the years. So I think that needs to be explored deeply to say what happened, why did they go into judicial management, what could have been done to actually save those companies. And then secondly, the issue of technology transfer. So I was doing this training with this German expert in partnership with Zimtrade. And you find that she was just saying that, the technology, because she's traveled wide into different countries, China being the main one, in terms of manufacturing. So she was designing and retailing from Europe, but she was outsourcing her manufacturing into China, Bangladesh, Vietnam. And she was saying the level of technology out there is amazing. And I think there needs to be a partnership between government, the private sector, and the tertiary institutions and the technical institutions in terms of what we are teaching. Is it globally relevant? Because when I'm trying to make a garment here and I'm trying to use a machine that was made in 1990, I still have machines like that in my workshop. And you're trying to compete with a factory in China that is using a machine that was made last year. Definitely, in terms of efficiencies in production, we are nowhere near what those guys are producing. So we really need to look deeply into that and focus not on the importing of ready-made clothing.
But what can we do to capacitate the sector for it to be competitive?
Yeah.
Right. Are you seeing any positive things within the industry that you'd want to highlight? Yes, we need government to come in with the things that you suggested. What are there positive things that we look around and say we've got this, and with this we can jump onto the next thing?
Definitely. So the training that I'm talking about with Zimtrade in partnership with this expert, and they call it SES, which is based in Germany, is a positive, because what is happening now is Zimtrade is part of the government, and they are looking at getting experts from elsewhere to come and say, come and capacitate our people. So that is a positive. Yeah.
Any other good thing?
I suppose now you will see the fact that the government is putting money into the production of cotton. That is a positive, because there's a workshop that I attended, which was arranged by the Zimbabwe Clothing Manufacturers Association some time ago. And you find that farmers were tired of actually growing cotton because they were not getting paid enough for the hard work that they do to produce this white gold, so they call it. So they were rather even going into other crops and moving away from cotton. So now you see the government has intervened, and hopefully we're going to see a situation where people get fair wages for their work.
Right.
Yeah. Because without the farmers, there's no cotton to talk about. And yet the Zimbabwean cotton is one of the best cottons globally. And yet you find those who are growing it at some point were just saying, but you know what, we're not getting paid enough for this, so we're no longer doing
We're going
it.
to get out
Yeah.
of it. So you started at the bottom, Joyce, as a merchandiser, pattern maker, and grader. Your first job, like you said, was at Coco. Talk to me about your design inspiration. What is it that you look at? What experience motivates you to say, I'm going to create this? I'm looking at the stuff that you brought here from Zuvva, which is your company. So share with us your creative purposes, your creative process rather. What drives you to say, I want to do this?
Okay, so I was born in Manicaland, Manika. During the school holidays, I was either in Honde Valley with my maternal grandmother, or I was in Rusape with my paternal grandmother. And so we did everything to help out with, in the homestead. We went to fetch firewood, going up the mountain. We went Kumunda. So my grandparents, my father was the last born out of 7 children. So his children were the youngest. So when everyone else had started working, we were still, school going age. And so we used to spend a lot of time, Kumusha, planting the maize, harvesting the maize. So you find if you've been to both places, it's
Honde Valley.
Honde Valley, it's lush, it's green. When you Rusape, Kumshakwa Baba is a lot of mountains, a lot of big rocky mountains. So because I spent a lot of time there, I suppose I appreciated being out there. Initially, I didn't when I was younger, but as I grew older, I did. And especially now, even as I visit occasionally, it's just a reminder of, how beautiful God's creation is, so you find that when you look at my range, my brand Zuvva, and my tagline is a natural experience. It's inspired by nature. So it's an eco-friendly collection. It's sustainable. It's conscious. I use a lot of cotton that's made locally. I coupled that with linen and hemp and a bit of denim. So I try and stay on the natural fabrics, though I do occasionally put in some man-made fabrics, but it's mainly natural fabrics. And also because my husband, who I met when I was still at school, was with David White Textiles. And so you find that I was exposed to Zimbabwean cotton from a very young age. And even as I traveled to Cape Town to study, I did a diploma in fashion design and clothing technology in Cape Town. For my end of year pieces for the fashion show, I had my fiance, then husband, send me through fabric from Zimbabwe, from David Whitehead. So I did use the drill for my collection, and also Java. We used to have our own prints here. So people say Zimbabwe doesn't have a print. We used to have beautiful prints, not just from David Whitehead, but from Contextiles. So I had that brought in from Zimbabwe to Cape Town, and that's what I use for my collection. So I am inspired by nature. And I believe that in all that we do, whether it's what we wear, what we consume, we must try and consume it in the most natural form as we possibly can. Yeah.
You say we used to have a national fabric? Is that what you call it?
Well, we used to have our own print.
What is it called?
Java.
Java.
Java, yes, which was from David Whitehead Textiles. And Contextiles used to also do prints, but I don't know what the print collection was called. But the David Whitehead one was called Java.
What happened to it?
Well, I suppose, like we spoke about judicial management, that happened, and then
I mean that takes us straight to the debate around the national dress. What we should do to have a national dress. Can you impose a national dress on a people? So we're going to stop here and take a short break. Please don't go away. Join us on the other side as we look into the discussion on the need for a national dress. Can we have a national dress? Can we impose a national dress on people? See you on the other side.
I look at my business not just really as a way of making money, but it's also a way of evangelizing.
My name is Craig. I'm the founder of the Mr. Rocca brand, Mr. Rocca London. We're an internationally accredited clothing brand which specializes in styling and tailoring. We style individuals and corporates. We also make suits, we make shirts, we make ties. The reason why I decided to style Trevor Ncube is because his brand, in conversation with Trevor, is also an international brand that reaches out to Zimbabweans, Africans, and the world at large. So us being together as two international brands complemented each other. He has a very diverse audience. He's got people that watch him from all over the world. He produces shows every week. He must be having a hectic schedule. So where I come in is I can help him curate, bring together clothes and styling so that he does not have to think about it every week when he's shooting something. So I partnered with him so that every week he has to be the best version of himself.
Thank you very much.
You don't have to be a celebrity to be dressed. The same way that you get expert advice from a doctor, from a lawyer, from your accountant, from your dentist, is the same way that you need expert advice from a stylist like myself. I'm sure you watch In Conversation with Trevor. I'm sure you like what you see. I've dressed bank CEOs like Lance. I've dressed politicians. I've dressed executives, and I've dressed ordinary people in general. And you have seen the results. The same way can happen to you. Thank you.
Welcome back to our conversation with Joyce Chimanye, an entrepreneur, a trainer, and a fashion designer. So Joyce, in 1995, you set up Zuvva. It's never easy setting up a business. Talk to us about the journey of starting Zuvva, the growing pains, as it were.
So I got married and I had to leave my job in Harare and move to Chegutu for us to start our family. So at some point I was at home and I was not used to sitting. Yeah.
Right.
So then I went back to my old school. My high school was at a school called Jameson High School in Kadoma. So I went there and I was a PE teacher for like 2 months. And so we did the calculation with my husband. He said, so why don't you just start your business? I'll help you, set it up so that you just do the calculations. How much would you make doing this job as a PE teacher? And you're not even trained to do that, or as opposed to open your own company. So to be honest with you, starting my own business was not really my
idea.
It was my husband's idea. And so I started actually in the house, in one of the rooms. And then I had a tailor who I got from Harare to come down to Chegutu, and then we started like that.
The two of you.
The two of us. So, and then at some point, my husband would actually come and help me. In the evening when he came home, I would design, make the pattern, then he would come and cut. And then pile up the work, and then the tailor.
This is stuff that he also did at work. Is that with David Whitehead?
No, he didn't. I thought I was teaching him how to do it so that he would help me, because at some point I was pregnant and I was tired. So he was helping me along.
Right.
And then the tailor would come in and then sew. So then at some point, we hired another young lady, and she was helping with the cutting. As he got busy, he couldn't help me. And then from there, we moved out of the house. We moved into the garage. We built the garage, and then we moved into the garage. Then at some point, we extended the garage. So at some point we had about 30 people in the garage. That's where we were working from.
From one person to 2 people, and then 30 people.
And then 30 people. So at that time, I wasn't doing the label, the brand. I was just doing corporate wear. So I was doing uniforms for companies like DHL. At some point, they used to do their uniforms within the different countries before they started having them all done in Brussels. Then another shipping company called Mediterranean Shipping, I did their uniforms. Tourism Services, Dube Manika and Wacha. Rainbow Hotels, Azimbezi and Rainbow Hotel. Victoria Falls Safari Lodge.
Econet.
Econet, I did do a bit of work for them. Okay. It wasn't that much.
Okay.
Country Road? Country Road, I met up with their buyer in 1995, and then I showed them a collection. So at some point, I was doing a collection from them under a brand, my own brand called Rivers Natural Wear. Mm-hmm. Then they decided they were rebranding, and they were branding all their products Country Road. So I was still designing and manufacturing for them, but under their own brand. They initially used to do their manufacturing out of Mauritius. And then I met the buyer, and she liked the quality of work I was doing. And then I started manufacturing for them. So I manufactured for them design and manufacture for them for 10 years, from 1995 to 2005. And then that's when we started having the challenges with the economy, and then they closed down their businesses. And then at that time as well, I also manufactured for one of their friends, a girl called Tessa, and she used to do a brand called Aztec in the UK. So I was doing some of her manufacturing here, and then exporting to the UK.
Why corporate wear?
So I realized as a business person that a young business person, that corporate wear was another good way of actually generating income, because with the corporates you'd approach them, they like the design. They pay 50%, and then they pay 50% on delivery. So it was a good way of actually keeping the small factory running, because the work was consistent. And then you find with the different companies, after a year, 2 years, they're reordering their uniforms. Though it was a bit challenging with the women, different bodies was a bit of a challenge. But for me, I also enjoyed it because it gave me time to meet a lot of women. So I met a lot of women when I did the corporate wear.
Yeah.
Some of them were still friends with me up to now. Great. Yeah. So it was, yes, a way of making money, but also it was a way of socializing.
What was the biggest challenge for you in setting up Zuvva way back then in 1995, when you look back?
I suppose when I was having my family, because what happened is with my kids, I never stopped working. The only time I stopped working when I was going to give birth. I used to go and give birth in Guero. I've got 2 sons. I used to go and give birth in Guero at my mom's house. So then I had to stop work. And then when I had the babies, sometimes I would bring them along to my meetings. So I remember the one time I was doing orders for Mediterranean Shipping, and I had my helper downstairs with my baby, my youngest baby, and I would go downstairs to breastfeed, and then I'd go back up for my meeting.
The burden of being a mother and an entrepreneur, isn't it? We tend, particularly us men, tend to forget that the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. So you find a lot of women. So you find I'm doing this leather collection. It's something that I been wanting to do for a while, and the collection is called Mawambo, and it's a dedication to women, especially around about my age, who've been wanting to do things, but they haven't been able to do that because they've been running with, raising families and stuff like that. And the fact that they're not where they would want to be is not because they lack the talent and the commitment, but it's because their time has been divided between trying to do a business and raising a family.
What lessons and what message would you have for women looking at you right now and saying she's got this fashion brand, these brands that she's got, she's doing very well, she's a mother and an entrepreneur. What has been the things that have kept you going and made you the success that you've become?
Well, I suppose for me, I would say really it's also my relationship with God. Because you find that I look at my business not just really as a way of making money, but it's also a way of evangelizing. I get to meet a lot of people one-on-one when they come into the store and they want something made. So sometimes when we are meant to be discussing a dress for the wedding, we spend the next 2 hours discussing some other thing and even going into prayer. And also the fact that as we build our businesses, through the help of God, they can be generational. So it doesn't matter how small they are. We mustn't give up. We must keep feeding time and resources into them, no matter how small the resources are and how limited the time is. And you find that over time, they will grow into something. So I look at where I am right now is not where I really would want to be when I compare myself to global brands. But I'm like, you know what? This is a seed that I'm sowing, and the next generation will take it to another level.
Where would you want to be? Where you are is not where you'd want to be. Where would you want to be?
I would love a situation where Zimbabwean cotton is sold globally, but with our story behind it. With our story behind it. Yes, time and resources have been limited. But yeah, over time, I'm really looking at a situation where we get to understand the farmer in Gokwe, and we can marry the high fashion product with the farmer in Gokwe and appreciate the work they are putting into that particular product, and also seeing an even distribution of the resources that are made from even our cotton, so that those who are farming it get the right wage for the work they're putting into those crops.
Wow. We before we took a break, I promised the viewers that we'll talk about a subject which should not really be controversial, but being Zimbabwe, it doesn't matter what you talk about, it becomes toxic and controversial. What are your views on the importance of a national dress? Point number one. Point number two, what would you think is the process of getting us there as a nation? Is it something that happens organically? Is it something that ought to be commandeered from above?
So you know what? As a creative and having traveled to different countries and seen different cultures, you see there's a journey that people walk to be where they are today. And I think as Zimbabweans, sometimes I think we are a bit hard on ourselves in terms of that national look when you look at our history. So when you look at our history, when we were colonized, we had a situation where a lot of communities were converted into Christianity. And even the way you dressed, it was mandatory for you to look a certain way. So what we had traditionally was stripped away from us. And so the fact that we are so many years down the line and we don't have a distinctive look is not of lack of creativity. Because when you look at, I was going through we were walked through the permanent collection in our gallery. And the director, Raphael, was showing us the different art pieces from the different tribes within our nation. The art is deep. The art is deep. But you find that through religion, a lot of stuff was taken away from us. Unlike, let's say, when you look at other communities in other parts of Africa, that was never taken away from them. So they lived it. We never got to actually live it the way we would have wanted to live it. So I think there is need, and we are doing this even through the Fashion Council. We are going to be coming up with information to share with the public of who we were before we were colonized. We had a look. We had jewelry. And though you find that maybe you can't compare us, for example, let's say with Arabs or in the desert who are covered from head to toe because of the climate that we live in. So when you look at, for example, the natives, let's say in Namibia, you find that their attire is very limited because of the type of weather they live in. And I suppose when you look at Zimbabwe as well, we're a very cold country. So you find that what we wore was also very limited because of the climate that we
So
lived
you're saying we need to go back into the past.
We need
and
to
the
go back into the
council
past.
is doing that.
Yes, as the Fashion Council of Zimbabwe, FCOZ, we are doing that research where we're going back into our past to say that this particular tribe used to look this particular way and so on and so on and so on. So that as Zimbabweans, we also get inspiration regarding who we were before. And hopefully that would direct us to say where we are going. Yeah. So you find that I was involved with the national dress through the First Lady's office. I suppose I was involved on the fashion show part, but I suppose on the research part, initially to come up with the different prints, I was not involved in that. And we're hoping that we're going to see more of a collaboration between them and the creatives to actually push this project forward. But also when I interact with young designers, you find that they have an idea of the way they feel they should be looking. And I think that research we're talking about would also guide their collections as they move forward, as they tap into the past.
But so you understand the pushback from the public that you can't impose a national dress on us. It's got to evolve. Is that the sense that you're getting?
I suppose someone needed to run with the initiative, and the First Lady's office did that. And I'm hoping for, as it grows, that there'll be more collaboration between her office and the general public, for the public to actually input into...
For a conversation to start and create a national dress. Let's go to your range of products. Should we go there in terms of what is it that you actually, your lines? I don't know what's the technical term for it. Do you want to take us there? I mean, your bags, your collection, Shall we walk through your collection?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, I love to use Zimbabwean cotton, and I do mix it with a bit of linen, which is imported, hemp, denim, which is imported. But the main thrust is the locally grown and processed textile. I like to use a natural fabric because natural fabric breathes. So, for example, if you wear a man-made fabric, which has got, let's say, 100% polyester, it's a cotton polyester blend. If you put it on your skin, if you sweat, the fabric does not absorb your sweat. So you can you have like sweat underneath your garment.
Right.
So I prefer to work with natural fabrics, whereby when you sweat, the fabric actually absorbs the sweat, and it actually cools your body. And also in terms of decomposing, the natural fabrics decompose; they go back into the earth. But
they're eco-friendly.
Yeah, they're eco-friendly. But the man-made fabrics don't decompose. So you can have heaps and heaps of land masses of textiles, and as you know, you can't. If you burn something, you're not destroying it.
No,
you're just converting it into another form of It's smoke that goes up into the air and then it stays there. It pollutes the environment. So I focus on natural fabrics, and then with the leather that we started to do it in 2017, but because I did not have the training and I did not have the equipment, I did a couple of items and I stopped. And so last year I did do some training in Cape Town, and I did put together
Focusing on leather and
on
technology.
leather. Yeah. So though it's a small collection I'm doing, I'm birthing something that I'm hoping will grow from there.
Fantastic. So this is the stuff that you brought for us to have a look at.
That's right.
What is this?
This is a folder.
All right.
That has a notebook inside. So
the Zuvva range.
Yeah.
And this is a.
That's a laptop bag.
Okay.
Okay. So, and what we are going to do as well with the products is we are going to give them Zimbabwean names.
Okay.
Yeah, Zimbabwean names, so that it's also a way of just pushing the language out there into the world to say that we are Zimbabwean people.
We ought to be proud of our languages and our culture. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You are big on training. And that's you're focusing on that now in a big way. Where does the passion come from? And talk us through the kind of training that you go through.
So, with my walk over time, and I've encountered young designers, and they have not received training, but they're saying I'm a designer. And I've been to shows where you look at the garments and you're like, if people carry on like this, they won't be able to put food on the table. So it was because of that I decided to actually go into training. So I started the training in 2016, and I started from home, actually, in my garage again in Chisipiti. And then later on, I moved to Sam Levy's Village, where I've got a small classroom.
Okay.
I haven't, I'm in the process of actually doing the registration with the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education. But I was not in a rush because I wanted to just even upscale myself as a trainer. And then I've done trainings with other organizations. I did a training in Rwanda with the Rwanda Development Board and ITC, where to upscale women businesses. Because I suppose I understand the journey where you can be working from home, but it doesn't mean that's the be and end all of it. You can actually upscale your business. Yeah. So I did a training with about 50 women back in 2000 and I think it was 17. And then I've also collaborated with the government of Zimbabwe, with the Ministry of Industry, and an organization called Agavus, which is a value addition chain from cotton to clothing, where we did training for the Chitungwiza Garment Center, I think 2 years in a row. And we also did training for SMEs in Guero. And then I've also done training with UNESCO, where we're training women living with disabilities to make...
What's the nature of the training?
So the nature of the training, it ranges from fashion to garment construction.
Okay.
Yeah. Teaching people how to use the machine, how to make patterns, how to design.
Do you find there's a lot of interest? And have you seen the people that you've trained get out to do real things?
Yeah. So for example, Chitungwiza Garment Center, they're actually manufacturing. They've got a group that works in their manufacturing. And with the UNESCO one, with the women living with disabilities, I engage them as and when I have work for the work that I've trained them for. Then there's also another group called the Islamic Women's Initiative, and we train them, but we train them on how to make reusable sanitary pads and uniforms. And they're setting up their own center in Heathcliff Extension. Then we also train children from the ages of 6 to 19 on how to just appreciate what is fashion, what is garment construction. Because what happens now is sometimes people get confused. Just because they like to wear clothes does not mean that they can work as a fashion designer or a garment maker. So we encourage parents to bring their kids in. Then the kids experience it. Then they decide, no, you know what? I don't.
This is not what I want to do.
I want to wear clothes. I don't want to make clothes. Yeah.
Right. Joyce, let's take a short break here. Please don't go away. We'll be back. And Joyce has been all over the world on fashion shows and pageants. And I'm also going to ask her if she's ever failed and how she's dealt with that failure.
I know that a lot of parents don't like their children being involved in pageants because of some negative things that are associated with pageants.
Welcome back to our conversation with Joyce Chimanye, an entrepreneur, fashion designer, and trainer. Joyce, you are a member of the Fashion Council of Zimbabwe, isn't it? Talk to us about what's the idea behind the Fashion Council of Zimbabwe and what work you do.
Okay, so I suppose being in the fashion space, I realized that sometimes there's how can I say, opportunities are misappropriated, resources, and yet there's actually a fashion community in Zimbabwe. So in 2019, we came together as a group of creatives to form the Fashion Council of Zimbabwe. And the Fashion Council of Zimbabwe is there to promote and to just help grow the fashion ecosystem in Zimbabwe, and to make sure that when resources and opportunities come, they're directed to the right individuals and entities.
What's the fashion ecosystem like? What should it ideally look like?
Well, I suppose with most industries, how we've been affected by the challenges that we've been going through as a country. So you have young creators who are not properly trained in order for them to engage in the business of fashion, to produce garments, to sell garments. Okay.
Is it about standardization or?
That too.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of people who are not trained.
Yeah.
So we're trying to ensure that people are scaled up and they're trained. We're trying to make sure that when opportunities come through, even let's say through Zimtrade for exports, we have the right people directed towards those particular opportunities. So you find that because of the breakdown of the system, you had a lot of designers housed in factories. But now you have a lot of designers who are doing their own things. And they don't have the proper training in terms of how to actually efficiently run a small factory, a workshop. So the Fashion Council has stepped in to make sure that we have programs that help to upscale.
Are you making progress in that regard?
Yes, we are. Last year, we actually had quite a number of what we call creative classes, where we had different organizations come in. Even Edgar's was involved, where we were imparting skills to young creatives on how to run their businesses.
Would you say where you are right now, you can cite a few achievements of the Fashion Council? Would there be? Yeah.
Last year, we actually launched a campaign. It's called the Wisdom Campaign, where we are encouraging Zimbabweans to, first of all, profiling Zimbabwean creatives to the public, and then encouraging Zimbabweans to wear what is made locally every Friday. So we have what we call the Wisdom Friday.
Okay.
So if you visit our Instagram page, Fashion Council of Zimbabwe, as well as our Facebook page and our website, you will see the different activities that we have done around this particular campaign to bring awareness to Zimbabweans of what is happening in the fashion ecosystem within the country.
Fantastic. You've also traveled throughout the world to attend fashion shows and pageants, Ouagadougou, Geneva, the Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week, Miss Zimbabwe, Miss Tourism, Miss Steph, Sydney, and Windhoek. What's the experience that you get from participating in these fashion shows and pageants? What are the learnings?
For me, yes, it's about showing other Africans what I'm doing in terms of my brand. But for me, the most important thing that I got out of that was just the networking amongst the different African creatives, a realization that we're all the same and we should work together to support one another. And it's exciting with this Africa Free Trade Agreement coming up, that we're hoping to see our goods move from border to into different countries,
Mm-hmm.
and for us to be able to consume what is made on the continent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's been some pushback around, or rather, a discussion, debate around Miss Zimbabwe, the pros and cons. What do you think is the most significant thing to come out of having something like Miss Zimbabwe?
I was involved with the Miss Zimbabwe pageant back in the 90s under Kiki Divaris. And I saw a lot of positives. I saw especially the way she was there as a mother figure and grooming the girls to be young ladies, and the opportunities they got from participating in the pageant. I hope that carries on in that particular fashion, because I know that a lot of parents don't like their children being involved in pageants because of some negative things that are associated with pageants. But
What are those negative things associated with pageants?
well, you have people taking advantage of young ladies. Yeah. Where you're coming in under the guise of sponsorship, and young ladies are taken advantage of. And yet we are there to actually just profile those young ladies, promote them, and upscale them. And but
how much of that is happening, abusing young ladies coming in to participate in these pageants?
The time that I was involved, like I said, I was involved with when Kiki Divaris was there.
Yeah.
And I really saw her being there and being like a mother figure in the lives of those young ladies. And then since her passing away, I haven't really been involved.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have any information relating to that. But I just knew that the time I was involved, there was a lot of, taking care of the girls who came in and giving them the best opportunities possible.
Because they're young, they're impressionable, and they can be easily misled.
That's
what
right.
You're saying?
Yeah, that's right. So I suppose in areas like that, you really do need a lot of strong women who are there to
mentor,
co-partner and mentor those girls. Yeah.
You've also been recognized a number of achievements, awards that you've gotten. Nedbrew Designer of the Year. What other awards do you remember? Can you recall that you've received?
Well, that was a long time ago. I think that was in the 90s.
But it still matters, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did actually. And then there was also, I think there was Nedbrew, then there was a cigarette. Was it the Castle
BAT?
Tankard?
No.
Nedbrew was alcohol, right?
Yes.
There was another cigarette company
Right.
that was involved in those days in fashion, and also Zimsan. I did quite a bit of work with Zimsan. They did a very good pageant called the Supermodel, and I was quite involved in that, as well as Carson and Dark and Lovely, the hair brand, used to have a big show. So I used to do all the designing for the hairdressers for Southern Africa. And then we used to have the big show in Johannesburg. Then I also got an award with the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce on the art side.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, when you look back, is there one thing where you say, I made a mistake, I failed, I could redo that? Is there any part of your life where you, if you had an opportunity to press rewind and redo?
I suppose when I was doing the corporate wear, I did lose quite a bit of money with some orders. Yeah, there were situations where you would deliver something, and it's not up to the client's expectation, and they would just say, "I want my money back," and then you'd need to actually run around and actually return that money. In terms of raising my boys, because of sometimes time at work, I wish I'd spent more time with them, because you think the time
How old are
is
they
there.
Now?
29 and 24. Yeah. So I wish I'd actually spent more time with them. There are things which I would have loved them to have done with me being there, and sometimes I was not available.
So there's a price to pay for who you've become.
Yeah, there is a price to pay. So even when you travel, when I used to travel quite a bit, then I would have to, leave them with their dad, ask my mom to come over to look after them. Yeah, and then maybe they've got something important that's happening that week and I'm not there. So yeah, I do look back and regret some of those moments.
So you started from your home, just you, and then you grew this business into what it is right now, where we can sit and talk about Zuvva. When you look back at all that, what is the thing that surprises you about what you've done in your life?
The fact that no matter how small the seed is, if it's watered, it will grow. Yeah. Because sometimes I think we look at an idea and we think we can never achieve it. And especially when you compare yourself with global players, then you think it's unachievable. But I've noticed that over time, when you put that seed into the ground and you do put water into it, maybe it's not as much water as the person next to you, but it does grow.
As the scripture says, do not despise small beginnings, isn't it?
Yeah.
Joyce, I would love to play a game with you now, if you don't mind. My fun questions. What's your favorite holiday destination?
I love Zimbabwe. I love the Eastern Highlands.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Wonder Valley.
Wonder Valley, Vumba. Yeah.
Beautiful. What's your favorite app?
App?
Yeah. TikTok, WhatsApp, Instagram?
I don't really like spending. I can't say favorite. I have to be there for work.
For work, yeah.
But yeah, I don't
so
actually.
you are not a social media person.
I'm not a social media person.
Yeah.
I have to be there for particular purpose, but I don't actually spend that much time there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your biggest fear?
Going to hell.
That one I was not expecting. Going to hell.
Not living right, and then yeah. So I have to work out my salvation with fear and trembling on a daily basis because hell is real.
Hell is real. What's your favorite thing to wear?
Denims and t-shirt.
Denim and t-shirt. Your pet hate?
People driving badly on the road.
Those drive me around the bend.
People driving badly on the road.
Particularly those that drive whilst texting and on the phone.
Yeah.
They make me mad.
Yeah, it's become quite dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's your role model?
My mom. She's no longer here. She passed away in 2017. Because I watched her. She was a nurse, but she was also a businesswoman. And even as we moved, I think we moved about 5 times, and from Mutare to Kadoma, from Kadoma to Gweru, and in Kadoma we moved twice, and then in Gweru we moved twice. And every time we moved with our chicken run. So for her to be able to sell her chickens and to be able to feed us through her chickens. So the removal truck would come and then would have the marata, the fence, the poles put into there, and then she sets it up at the next place. So she was, though she was a nurse by profession, she was hardworking and did other things to make sure that she helped our dad to, provide for us.
What's the one thing that you think is misunderstood about fashion, your industry?
That there's no work, that the garment just happens to just appear there. And yet there's so many processes. There's someone who's going to design that garment, who's going to make that pattern, who's going to grade it, who's going to sit and stitch it up and, check the quality. And then it lands up in the shop. But when people come and they want stuff made, they think, someone just stands there and then they just cut and then they do 2 stitches.
And there's a lot of work.
So people don't want to pay for people's work, especially in this country. People don't want to pay. So you find young designers really struggle to make ends meet because people don't want to pay for their service.
Well done for this, hey? Well done for this. Real work, producing real products. I can see this being exported and earning forex for the country. So well done for that.
Thank you, Trevor.
Excellent. Shall we do books? We love books on this show.
Books.
Are there books that you've read, Joyce, over the years? 3 books at least that you'd recommend to our book loving audience out there?
Okay, so the first book was The Confessions of the Economic Hitman.
Really?
By author John Perkins.
Yeah.
It made me realize that, things happen and sometimes we don't even know the reason why things happen. Yeah.
The second book?
The second book was The Redemption of the African Warlord by a guy called Joshua Blighty, which looks into the, I don't know if you heard the name Butt Naked, General Butt Naked.
No.
Who was a general in Liberia during the time of Samuel Doe, and his rise to power, his spiritual influence, and his later conversion to Christianity. Yeah, and his testimony of what used to happen during the war. I found that very interesting. And the third one is a book that I got when I traveled to Santa Fe, New Mexico for an art fair there. The author was called Margaret. I forgot the surname. And the book is called Away from Home. And it basically talks about the life of the, Native American children, how they were taken from their homes and put into boarding schools by force, and how the parents would actually go and camp outside the boarding schools for them to be able to see their children and that sort of thing. So that was also quite a disturbing book, but interesting.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing those books. They're very emotional books, isn't it? Lots of pain in there. Joyce, thank you so much for creating the time to join me on in conversation. I love having conversations with people like you, people who produce real stuff, which has the potential to create wealth, and they're actually creating the wealth and creating jobs for a lot of Zimbabweans. So well done for doing that. And, every time I have these conversations, I'm amazed by just how much potential we have as a people. Point number one. Point number two, how much we don't realize what's happening in this country, which is beautiful, which should be supported. And I keep hearing people say, I wish the government could do A, B, C, D. Not to give us money, but to provide an environment that supports the things that we're doing. Like you're saying, the textile sector, cotton growing, and adding value to that cotton. Joyce, we wish you all the best, and we'll keep watching what you're doing. So thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thanks, Trevor. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Allow me to turn to our viewers, Joyce, who are all over the show, who watch us every Monday on YouTube. We premiere Monday, 7 a.m. on YouTube, 7 a.m. Central African time. To ensure that you don't miss out on any of these quality conversations, I invite you please to press on this button and subscribe, like, and remember to share. We love your comments below the videos, the criticisms, the suggestions as to who should come onto the show. Keep them coming. We've gone a step further, by the way. We've created podcasts which sit on our website. So visit our website where you'll find all the conversations that we have had over the past 2 or so years for your listening pleasure. Until next time, cheers to you all.